Are you finding it difficult to tell a good story to capture your audience and make them want more? Learn how to do that in this video. We have the most used technique to communicate successfully and make an impact on your audience. But first, please like and subscribe to this channel, and then sit back and relax. The term storytelling has become fashionable in recent times and arouses both curiosity and interest in knowing what this technique is about, which, although it is old, has become all the rage when it comes to communicating messages, be it through social networks, in-text institutional, or through a simple public dissertation. But what is storytelling? It is an Anglo-Saxon expression, which is broken down into two words: story and tells. It could be described as a compelling narrative of events with a final message that leaves a lesson or concept. Experts on the subject say that knowing how to tell stories is an art. The goal is to achieve a larger audience, that is, more views and reproductions, but also to affect the people who listen, watch, or read. This technique to transmit messages, which is not something recent. Since the ability to tell stories comes from the oldest practices, it is performed by editors and screenwriters as an entirely more effective way than simply telling or telling. Because with the idea or message to be communicated, the aim is to transform people's lives. Those who apply it are called emotion professionals, due to the high degree of efficiency and commitment, or effective emotional bond, that it generates in the people who receive the content. For example, it is highly valued when building a relationship between values and brands. What's your objective? The objective is clear: to connect emotionally with the other through a story. It is the ideal way for the public to capture a message that you want to give them, since they easily identify with a life story similar to theirs, or that represents an act of improvement, that has a challenge, and that has perseverance, but let it be well told. So, storytelling works on two levels. The first is rational, which points to the logical processes of people, and the second is instinctive, which covers the emotions of the human being who uses it. All of us are made up of our own stories and those of others, and we tell them daily to captivate, persuade, or convince acquaintances and strangers. But in the professional field is where this concept, increasingly used in the communication channels of public figures, companies, and entities, is further developed. It can be through a post with words, images, or videos on social networks, an institutional text, or a public dissertation. Communication is constant. Writing and journalism are traditionally the authors and tellers of significant life stories, but in recent years, and currently, marketing and advertising are the ones that use storytelling the most to connect their users with the message they want to convey, regardless of the format used. Currently, since communication is to a greater extent online, the technique is perfectly adapted to the medium, demonstrating that the emotional side of people who will be potential customers can also be appealed to through the internet. Once you understand its objectives and usefulness, you can begin to envision what are the steps to develop good storytelling. How do you tell a good story? Construct a good message. Storytelling is divided into two parts: the story and the message that will be conveyed, and how that message is presented. The correct synergy between both factors will grant the success of what is intended to be communicated. For this, the first step is to think about the idea to communicate and how to make the message reach the recipient without difficulty. If there is no clear concept to transmit, there will be no correct use of the technique that reaches. We advise you as a first task to think clearly about what content you want to communicate. Keep in mind that all over the internet there are billions of texts, videos, and conferences with impressive stories that excite or surprise the audience for a few moments, but the speed and ephemerality of the 21st century make them forget. For this reason, the interest that concepts are well communicated and that they have an impact is more relevant than ever, so that they can continue to be remembered. Thinking about the environment. Events need a physical space in which to locate them to continue being described. When it is possible to locate protagonists and scenarios clearly, imagination and mental translation are easier for whoever listens or sees the narrative in question. Identify the characters. To put together storytelling, the protagonist or group of people who embody the story being told must be identified. The character is the one who experiences the events and undergoes a transformation that leads to the transmission of the message. To reach that final concept, You must overcome the conflict that is going through you. Raise a conflict, the problem, and its subsequent solution with learning. The conflict is the main factor that causes interest in the audience, which will slowly become interested according to their different values and cultural skills until they want to know about its resolution. It is a challenge that is posed to the character, which is indirectly transferred to the public. If it is simple, it does not cause great interest. Instead, the conflict must be elaborate and difficult, to the point of requiring the transformation of the character to be overcome. In addition to putting into practice the concepts that make storytelling, there are 7 essential rules to keep in mind when making it. Introspection. Doing a good job of self-awareness will be ideal to discover what are the stories that you or your brand have inside. This task requires commitment and sincerity with our characteristics to get to know ourselves and to be able to explain it to others. Authenticity. Leaning on past events in our lives to be consistent is one of the tips that is most taken into account. For this, it is important to remember specific, well-detailed images and strong moments of the journey taken. It is strictly forbidden to lie or misrepresent stories in storytelling. If we tell false stories or those of others, the inconsistency of what is exposed will come to light sooner or later. Brands usually use the experiences of their creators or consumers experiencing their bond with it. Empathy. Using empathy with the people around you, as well as the public that receives our story, will be one of the elements that connect with the public quickly and effectively. When it comes to narrating, let's look for specific examples that can be even more effective if they have some kind of anchor with the characteristics of our audience. Don't pretend. Yes, you heard that right. Don't pretend to be as authentic as possible. Do not pretend or exaggerate our virtues. In an oral presentation, whether face-to-face or by video call, the concepts of oratory must be taken into account. Since the human body itself communicates with expressions and gestures, even the silences or rhythms of speech show the transparency of the story. Put emphasis. Beyond what is told in the storytelling narrative, emphasis must be used in words, images, and energies. The objective is that the values or ideas that are to be transmitted reach the public so that they capture the concept and associate it. It is recommended not to be arrogant or bombastic, but to find a suitable tone, the most appropriate metaphors, or the images that best define the message that you want to convey. Consequently, finding the heroic in the ordinary. Personalize. Each story should describe someone. It has to be clear who he is or the protagonist of the facts we tell. It is necessary to personalize the main actor or actress of what happens in the narrative. Experts point out that being humble while speaking personally is extremely effective, as well as audience-pleasing. Simplify. The simpler and shorter, the better. The primary concept that you want to convey is the ultimate goal. It does not contribute to the cause to lengthen the stories, nor to adorn them with unnecessary specificities. To simplify in a few words is to learn to tell stories effectively and authentically. The messages that you want to expose can be complex, but the stories should not be. They have to have a meaning, which is glimpsed during their beginning, development, and end. Storytelling is successful precisely because of its simplicity and focus on the facts to effectively communicate complex messages. As you will see, the art of storytelling is much more than telling stories. It is a communication technique with certain characteristics which seeks to be as effective as possible when it comes to getting a message to a person. Communication channels have changed over the centuries, but this technique continues to be used and perfected. After all, we are full of stories, and within them are messages. With these elements and rules, you will be able to start transmitting the stories you want to reach your audience in the best way. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, the subscription button, and the notification bell. To get notified when new videos are uploaded from this channel, please share your thoughts about the step-by-step guide on how to tell good stories in the comments section below. Thank you.